I don't know if I remember how to do this, Reuben.
I'm Rube, by the way. We haven't
I'm
met.
Dave.
Good
Nice to meet you, Rube.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's
It's been a
the
while.
it's the night before Christmas for me. I'm really excited. Eagles training camp. It's here. We made it with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. This is the Eagle Eye podcast. Summer's over. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcasts that we had over the last 5 weeks when we were taking some much needed vacation time, but we're back and ready for football.
Yeah, ready for the grind of an endless 9-day training camp. Here we go. I hope we can grind through these 9 45-minute practices with no pads.
Well, it is the start of a pretty long season that'll last into January, maybe into February.
Is that a
We'll
prediction?
not a prediction, but we'll see where this season goes. Rube, how was your time off? We haven't really talked much during the last month or so because we were both enjoying ourselves in other locations, but have a good time?
Yeah, it was nice. It was. I'm sure you were counting down the days, minutes, and seconds till tomorrow at 10 o'clock. But yeah, it was. It was relaxing. Watched a lot of the World Track Championships, and that's really, I can't think of a better way to spend my vacation.
I bet you did.
I did.
I know.
I'm sure you did, but you just won't admit it.
No, I did watch the Devin Allen non-race.
Yeah, that was a shame. He handled it well, and that was. I don't want to get too deep into that, but
thank you.
He got screwed basically.
Yeah,
by the
doesn't
time
make any sense.
Well, a woman from your high school made the finals in the shot put, Jessica Woodard, whose her dad played for the Eagles from '94 to '96. Mark Woodard. He was a linebacker, and Jess was 8th in the shot put at the World Championships. So, congratulations to her. Marlton, New Jersey, went to Oklahoma. Yeah,
that's good. All right, well, that does it for the track portion of the podcast today. Yeah, I had a good time. I took some vacation time. I was out in Washington for a little bit.
Your photos are incredible, by the way.
It's hard to take a bad photo out there, to be honest with you. We were up at like Mount Baker area and North Cascades National Park. We're in British Columbia for a few days.
Oh, nice.
Really beautiful stuff. So I enjoyed it, but once I got back, I was like in the mode of getting ready for training camp, and I'm excited. I know that this is a time of year you go, this isn't training camp, but it still is. It's still exciting.
What makes it training camp and not just practice?
Well, there's 90 guys on the roster. They're fighting for jobs. We get to watch.
That's really the only thing, is we get to watch. To me,
well, no, also like they're installing their offense and defense. Whereas like once you get into the season, they're so game specific and they're planning for each opponent. It's still different.
Yeah, I guess. To me, it's just the preseason. I mean, and I'm not being critical. I understand why Nick does it the way he does it. But, I mean, it's 9 days here at the NovaCare across the street. And one day over here, August 6th at the link.
August 7th.
August 7th, my bad. 7 o'clock, I think. And then 2 days in Cleveland, 2 days in Miami. And that's training camp. They don't have more than 2 days in a row of padded practices, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of walkthroughs. There's a lot of days off. I mean, look, this worked for Nick last year. They were really healthy. They were prepared. I thought they were ready for the season. So believe me, I'm not being critical. It's just so different than it used to be. I'm not saying the way it used to be was right. I looked up Dick Vermeil's first training camp in '76. They reported July 16th, and they went right up till a week before the regular season. It was like 8 weeks of training camp, of two-a-days. Each one was like 2.5 hours. Each two-a-day practice was fully padded with live drills in their goal line, full go. And so they had something like, I did the math, it came out to like 190 hours of training camp. And Nick's got 18 hours of training camp. So it just shows you how different this is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of been a gradual process to get here. 2011 really jump started it with that CBA.
I thought it was 2002 that really was the first, because Corey Stringer had died the previous summer out in Mankato in the Vikings training camp, and It was 2002 where they first
Is
banned
that how
two of
you
them.
say that year?
Mankato. Oh, the
No,
year
no, 2002.
2002. I usually probably say 2002, but I just felt like saying 2002. I thought it
Okay.
would go faster, but
I didn't know it's not now. I've really,
I kind of
I've really slowed it
defeats the
down.
purpose. But that it was that year that they first banned two-a-days, and the afternoon practice had to be either a walkthrough or special teams practice with no pads, no hitting, and I think it was maxed out at an hour. So to me, that's when the real changes started.
Mhm.
And once you don't have two practices, there's really no reason to be away out of college. And you have all your facilities back in the city. So yeah, but it's been step by step, and now we're at the point where um, there's no fans. I mean, there's a few fans that are handpicked corporate people and advertising people, and
I
I
think they do
guess
a raffle for season
yeah,
tickets.
there's a handful, very small number. Um, yeah, it doesn't have the charm of training camp, but I totally understand why they did it. Hard to believe, Dave. This is the 10th year back in the NovaCare. It's been
It's
10
wild.
years since we were at Lehigh.
Yeah. The only qualm I have about it, I just wish fans could watch it more. And I know there's not really a way to do it at the NovaCare, and having practice at the link is just tough. They end
It's
up
not real
being,
practice. Yeah,
yeah, they end up really having to water it down. And there's no way around it. Like, they just don't have the space at NovaCare to put more stands or anything. That's the one thing I wish.
they're not allowed to have. There's a certain number of people. I think part of the agreement when they moved there was they couldn't enlarge it. They couldn't, like when we were up at the Jets complex, which is similar. They had a bunch of stands around
Yeah.
all the fields. I mean, I don't know how many. They probably had room for a couple thousand people in there. They're not even allowed to do that here. Even if they could, they have the room. Probably have to reconfigure some things, but they can't do it. It's a shame.
It is a shame because that was my favorite part of training camp at Lehigh, was fans being there and like feeling, cheers when something would happen. Like, I missed that part of it.
I miss the kids. I miss seeing the kids interacting with the players and carrying their helmets and pads. A little like 8-year-old kid carrying a helmet that's bigger than him next to like Winston Justice or somebody, because they'll never forget that, and that's gone, and it's a shame.
My favorite days that they'll probably do it, I'm guessing, at the public practice is military day, when they'll have soldiers line up on one side, the players line up on the other, and they meet in the middle and sign the jersey and everything. I always wonder how they end up with like the certain players, because like one guy's gonna have this year have like AJ Brown, the guy next to him might have like Renell Wren. You're like, he's got to be like, man, how'd this happen to me?
Yeah, well, it was always cool watching, like when Chad Hall was on the team. Um, just how they. I mean, he would stand out there for hours because they respected him so much. I mean, he was in the Air Force, and he fixed fighter jets. That was what he did before he signed with the Eagles. So just seeing him interact with those guys was always really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. It's always a fun day. And look, the public practice will be fun. It's just a shame that it's not the type of practice that we get to see every day, which I'm still thankful for. Like, it helps us do our jobs. But
Yeah, yeah, and then joint practices. I mean, we all joke that Andy's 2-0 in joint practices, but that's the best work we'll see this summer. I mean, that they get after it in a way that they really don't at the NovaCare.
you say Andy?
I was just saying. I was just thinking. Andy was the one that started Military Day.
Oh,
And I remember, I just had Andy on my mind. I was going to say, I remember getting John Harbaugh's training camp schedule when his first year with the Ravens, and it had Military Day on it. I was like, he's taking everything from Big Red.
it'll be fun though. And those joint practices, look, if you're in Miami in late August for some reason, those practices actually are open to the public. You just need a ticket. They're free. I have a story up on the site with the whole schedule and everything. It has the link there. So if you happen to be in South Florida and you want to see the Eagles practice, you can.
There were a lot of Eagles fans in where were we? Florham Park last year.
A little easier.
Yeah, a little easier. But I mean, but that was your first opportunity in a long time to see it. I guess you could have gone to Foxborough a few years ago, but
Yeah, well, last year didn't they had a public practice, but it got canceled, right?
Yes.
Weather, yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So I think. What about Cleveland? Does Cleveland have? I think I know
No,
some of their
Cleveland's closed.
Cleveland's closed.
They're closed.
Yeah, I know some of their practices are open, some aren't. So
Yeah, they're the practices that are open there are finished by the time the Eagles come to town.
there you go. So yeah, drive down to. It's in northern Miami, so it's a little closer. Yeah, it's not like you have to
Miami
drive
Gardens.
Coral Gables or anything. It's a half an hour closer.
I'm excited though.
I know you are.
Yeah, I'm gonna. This is legitimate, and this is the dork level that I'm on with it. I'll have trouble sleeping tonight.
No, get out of here.
I will. It's like the night before you go on like a trip or something. You kind of have that like nervous energy. I'll have
Yeah.
that tonight.
And I've got to share some insight into Dave at practice. So there's a big gate, and as soon as practice opens, the PR department opens the gate, and we can all go in. The second that gate starts swinging open, Dave's like before it's even all the way open. Dave is like squirming.
That's for the regular season. Training camp, it's just open.
Is it just open? But Dave's out. What I'm getting at is Dave's out there before anybody and he's got a pad, a notebook, or a roster, I guess, and takes attendance. And if there's a player missing, man, Dave knows. It's good stuff.
Got to take attendance.
I'm glad you do, because it means I don't have to do it.
All right, let's talk about the team a little bit, because we're in a unique. Last year, everyone wanted to get excited for training camp, but it was more about the unknown. It was about Sirianni and about Hurts, and so much of what we watched last summer was really just about the changes, right, and how different things were. This year, we kind of know what to expect from Sirianni and the structure of everything. The difference this year is the expectations are just so much higher for this team. And it's not really on our budget here, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit. The expectations on this team kind of changed the whole vibe around it as they go in the training camp this year.
Yeah, I actually wrote a piece about that. I think it was while you were away, so you probably hadn't seen it. But I'm sure you weren't out there at the top of the mountain, like carabining up some rock wall, like, oh, Rube wrote a good story here. Is that a word, carabining? Is that what you did, carabine up? I think that's really one of Nick's biggest challenges, is kind of navigating the team through that, because, last year, I mean, what did they pick to win? 6.5 games? And they were 3-6 at one point, and nobody was paying attention. They just kind of got hot and they won some games. But now, I mean, everyone's picking. I saw Pro Football Focus picked them with the 7th best roster in the league. CBS Sports said they had the best offseason in the league, number 1 offseason in the league. They're ranked like top 10 in every poll, every ranking. They got 5 primetime games. So all that is part of expectations, and it's not as easy to perform for a lot of people under that microscope when, if you slip up, it's not just, well, they just lost another game. It's like, oh my God, they lost to the whoever it is. And, and then everyone's questioning everything. So it's not easy to be in this position, and we'll see how they respond. I mean, they are being picked to do a lot of good things. I mean, I'm probably going to pick them to win 11 or 12 games. I'm not sure exactly what the number will be. We'll see, but the roster is there. When you have this kind of offseason and you bring in a Reddick and a A.J. Brown and you draft Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis and, you sign Kazir White and Bradbury, you bring in all these guys. I mean, that's a team that wants to win now, and that's the expectation. And anything less than that is a disappointment. And we'll see how they handle it.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is going to be on Sirianni to kind of craft the message, but he's going to lean on the veterans too. I mean, if Jason Kelsey spots someone feeling themselves a little bit too much, he's going to probably put him in place. And same thing on defense with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. It'll be fun to watch, though. It does. The pressure, it just rises when you're expected to be good. Last year, they caught everyone by surprise. So.
Yeah, and Nick knows. I mean, we had we had an interview session, I guess about 10 or 12 writers with Nick back in June. And he talked about that at length, just about, I mean, I think that's going to be one of his big themes for the year is, there's a reason you got to the playoffs last year, just because there's a lot of hype around this team. You can't get away from the things you did that got you into that position. I really think that's going to be a theme we hear all year, or that the players hear all year, because he knows what the expectations are, and it's a whole new world for a lot of these guys. I mean, there's not that many guys who are here in 17, and frankly, that team didn't have a whole lot of expectations either. So it's not an easy thing to deal with, and that's, to me, that's the biggest challenge that Nick faces this year.
All right, you want to go through some position battles?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I highlighted these, and this year there aren't super marquee position battles. There aren't a ton of starting spots up for grabs, but we'll start with one that might be right guard. And Isaac Seumalo's coming back from that Lisfranc injury, was their starting left guard for a few years before, but Landon Dickerson is now entrenched as the left guard. So the Eagles move Isaac to right guard. It seems like he's going to get the first crack at that job. I guess the first thing we have to find out on Wednesday when they practice is Isaac Seumalo a full go. He might not be, but that's the way I'm viewing it. It's his job to lose. Is that the way you're seeing it too?
I think so. I think he wouldn't. And it was funny because they told us without us even asking that he was going to be a right guard. I mean, I think Howie did it. Was it at the after?
No, it was Shane Steichen.
Was it Shane? I thought.
No,
okay.
Shane was asked about the right guard spot, and he brought up Isaac first, and then we got out the OTAs, and there was Isaac.
No, I thought Howie said it at the draft, after the draft.
No, Howie mentioned at the draft that Dickerson was the left guard.
Okay, all right, yeah, that must have been it. So, but yeah, I think he wouldn't be getting the first crack at it if they didn't want him in that spot. But I mean, with Isaac, the injuries have been, problematic for the last 2 years. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So we'll see. Again, I mean, he's we don't know. We don't know if he's going to start the season on PUP or practicing. We'll find out. But they have Sua, they have Driscoll, Herbig's gone, but I think Seumalo's the best of the bunch talent wise, and he's also in a contract year, so there's a lot of different shades to it. But I think if he's healthy, I don't see why he wouldn't be the guy.
Yeah, and we've talked about Isaac a bunch on Eagle Eye before. I think there's a lot of fans that remember him from early in his career when he really did struggle. They tried to make him the starter pretty early in his career, even in 2017. The Super Bowl year, he was supposed to be the starter, and he got benched. And I think a lot of people still remember him from that. But he's been a solid, at least an average guard in the league when he's been healthy. The injuries are concerning.
A little above average, probably.
Sure.
A little bit. But yeah, so
I think it does also help playing next to Kelsey, next to Jason Peters for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mulata, I guess. I mean, a little bit, but
early Mulata.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be one of the more interesting storylines. It's funny because they've got an all-pro caliber left tackle. They've got, I think, a really promising left guard who's going to be in a Pro Bowl sooner or later, probably sooner. Got a Hall of Fame center and a 3-time Pro Bowl right tackle who might be their best player, and right guard. It's the one spot. Whoever they put there, I mean, they're going to have a really good offensive line. You could put Matt Darwin there. That's one.
I wonder what name you were going to pull for that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go like Kyle Devan.
Yeah. I asked Jason Kelsey one day back when we were allowed in the locker room to name every guard he ever played next to. And I think Kyle Devan was the one guy he forgot.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So if it's not Isaac, it'll be Jack Driscoll or Sua Opeta.
I would think Sua, honestly.
You think Sua?
I think Sua for two reasons. I just think they like Driscoll as, jack of all trades, and he's had a bunch of injuries himself. I mean, he has
Jack Driscoll of all trades.
Exactly. So I think Sua is pretty good.
I mean, they did give Driscoll that job last year before he got hurt, and then Nate Herbig filled in.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, I don't know. Then there's
So do you think? So what if Isaac wins the job? Week 2, he gets hurt. Who's in there? I think Driscoll will be the next guy up.
Yeah, I guess that's probably likely. I do think Sue is decent though. But
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, and Jeff Stoutland has had a lot of projects. Sue was one of them. People don't realize like he was really raw
yeah,
when he was undrafted out of Weber State back in 2019. He's come a long way.
yeah, he's in his 4th year now.
Yeah, it's hard. Some of these guys are like, how did this happen? And they have some other players too, like Coyote Owasika from Buffalo.
Don't sleep on Coyote. He's they seem to really like him. I got him in my 53 as of now.
Yeah, it's very possible, depending on how many offensive linemen they keep. All right, the next position, linebacker, and we're talking off-ball linebacker here, not the Sam position, which might have a battle of its own. But the off-ball guys, it's funny because I think they have 5 that I'm pretty confident are going to make the roster. But after that, they're really fighting for the roles in the defense. And the 5 we're talking about here are TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, Nakobe Dean, Davion Taylor, and Sean Bradley. Now, of those 5, Sean Bradley probably is the special teamer guy. He probably doesn't have a great shot of really earning playing time on defense. But those other 4, there's roles to be won here in camp.
Yeah, and to me, Davion's kind of the wild card. He actually played pretty well when he got to play, but he's another one who's had injuries and hasn't been able to stay on the field, hasn't been able to stay healthy. I think he's been on IR 4 times in 2 years, 3 times at least. So I like his game. He's athletic. He can run around. He makes plays. But I just don't know. I don't know where, what you're going to do with him. I think TJ Edwards is going to play more than people realize. I think he's pretty solid. I know he played well last year. He just gets better every year, which, sometimes you see that from these undrafted guys who come in and they just have a lot of room to grow. And he's done that. I thought by the end of last year, he was playing at a really high level. I'm intrigued by how they're going to use Dean. And I think all those guys are going to play. I think Dean, Kaiser, and TJ are going to play a lot. And, we'll see if Nakobe can handle, Mike and the Will. I would think he can mentally. How does he hold up physically at his size is the biggest question.
Yeah, he's like 5'11", 230.
Yeah. So it's just crazy that, I've been covering this team for 36 years. Yeah. And they've never had good linebackers. They just never had across the board good linebackers, and they do. And that's going to be fun to watch.
It will be. You and I are in agreement here about how this is going to work eventually, but I'm curious to see how quickly they throw Nakobe Dean in the deep end. Is it going to be I don't think it'll be day one. I think they're going to bring him along kind of slowly in camp, and I think they're going to use a lot of different combinations in camp. They did it last year, and I know the talent wasn't up to this level, but there were still similar questions about how those linebackers would be used, and I felt like every day at camp last year they had a different combination. I kind of think that's what we're going to see this year too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you need to find out if he can handle going back and forth to for 2 different positions. Whether you see that on day one, I don't know.
Well, that kind of lends itself to different rotations, though.
Yeah. I guess that's going to come down to how they. You don't want the guy to be underwater and just get overwhelmed. But he's such a smart guy. It's
hard to imagine after everything we know about him really being overwhelmed.
Yeah. But again, it's a different game. As good as Georgia's defense was, as well as he played last year, the NFL is a different game, and they throw a lot at you. It'll be interesting to see how he can process it and how much they throw at him.
Yeah. So the scenario in my head, and I think you're along the same lines as me. I feel like eventually Nakobe's going to be the player, that linebacker who plays the most, and he'll play the Mike and he'll play the Will. And when he's at the Mike, they'll have Kaiser White at the Will. When he's at the Will, they'll have TJ Edwards at the Mike, and it kind of allows them to play different packages depending on what the offense wants to do. The wild card in the back of my head is if Davion Taylor can push Kaiser White. And based on what we know, that's probably not super likely. Kaiser had a nice year last season, and Davion is still pretty raw. But you have to ask yourself, if the Eagles had a preference of which player wins that job, it would probably be Davion Taylor, who they used a third-round pick on, and not a linebacker who they didn't break the bank for. They got him as a free agent, but on a one-year deal. So that's in the back of my head. It's like, what if Davion Taylor can push Kaiser White to earn some of the snaps at the will?
Yeah, it's interesting, and they have a bunch of these guys on one-year deals, which kind of makes this next offseason. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but you want continuity and stability on defense. So, it's something to keep an eye on, because I think the odds that like Bradbury and Kaiser White are back next year aren't astronomical. I mean, I guess there's a chance, but they're going to want to. I mean, the very reason the Eagles were able to sign them was because they were cheaper on one-year deals, and if they play well, then you're not going to be able to do that again. So
a little bit of a catch-22.
It is. You want them to play well, but
they're going to play themselves out of your price range.
If they do, you might lose them. Yeah, exactly. So I like Davion, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's at that level where he can challenge Kaiser for playing time.
Yeah, you might be right. It's just my mind works like that. Like I because you have to think about, like, who would they want to win that job if all things were equal? They're not, obviously. And then I keep asking myself why the Chargers let Kaiser go.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a pretty good team. They're pushing their chips in the middle of the table in LA. He didn't cost very much. Just something to think about.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Right, how about the cornerback position? And this is another one where, the starters are pretty well defined. We know there's Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox. Write them in pen, right? No one's coming for those jobs. After that, even after they released Craig James last week, there are 9 cornerbacks fighting for maybe 3 jobs, maybe 3.
Maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
And there's no guarantee that the best 2 of them will be good enough to keep. I mean, because none of them really have a track record.
I mean, I just think the numbers game tells you 2 of them will be.
You would think so, but I'm not sure you can build a team. Well, the 2 best guys that emerged from this heap of 9 cornerbacks who've never really done anything in the NFL, you would hope that, you find a diamond in the rough there, but it's not a lock.
Yeah. I mean, the one guy who does have experience is Jimmy Moreland, who's been in the league now for a while. He's 26, so he's the elder statesman of those 9 guys. I don't know what to expect from him. He's played mostly nickel in his career, but he has the flexibility to play outside. I talked to some people in Washington. They think he might even be able to play safety at some point. I don't know if they'll do all that right away, but he's a little bit of a wild card, because the other guy, like, how much do they value the experience in their defense versus experience in the league? That's a tough one. So if it comes down to, say, Jimmy Moreland or Josiah Scott, I don't know which way that goes. Moreland has more experience. He's more versatile. Josiah Scott, they traded a draft pick for. With a few of these guys, they traded draft picks for. He's been here for a year. He plays special teams, but he's a nickel-only defender. Those are the types of questions they're going to have to ask when they're putting this roster together.
Yeah, and a lot of it, when you're talking about the 4th and 5th, maybe 6th corners, is what can they give you on special teams? I think that's going to be a huge part of it too, because that's going to be, if the starters stay healthy, that's going to be a big part of their role. So
I think Zach McPherson is in the lead for one of those jobs, pretty far in the lead.
He was a 4th-round pick, and he did get some playing time last year, not a ton until that last Dallas game. But when he was in there, it wasn't a disaster. So I just think having that second year in the system is so big for a kid like that.
And he became a big special teams contributor last year.
He really did. Yeah. I mean, he would be the favorite. But again, I don't think any of them are locks.
How about the other guys? Anyone else that you're a big fan of? I like Tay Gallen quite a bit. I'd like to see him in camp.
I guess McCain is a guy I want to keep an eye on, but who knows? I just haven't seen these guys play.
I am shocked you didn't say Kerry Vincent. That
Kerry
was
Vincent.
an opportunity for you to shoehorn more track into this podcast.
I wouldn't do that to you, Dave. But how about,
You
how
would
about
never
that
do that.
steeplechase? How about that women's steeplechase? Come on. No, I mean,
Which one's
look,
steeplechase?
3,000 meters, barriers, water jump.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a weird one.
yeah. Olympic steeplechaser in 1948 from Villanova, Browning Ross from Woodbury, New Jersey, South Jersey. There you go.
They should put like some gators in that water. Really spice up the competition a little bit.
There were some guys from Florida in that race.
All right, you got anything else in the cornerbacks?
I got nothing else on the cornerbacks or the steeplechase.
Okay. How about wide receiver? Very similar to cornerbacks. Like we know.
We're gonna have to talk about track again.
Oh gosh, I put myself in a corner here.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
The first four, we know the first four, right? It's Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, excuse me, Zach Pascal, and Quez Watkins. They're the first four.
Maybe not in that order, but yeah.
Maybe not in that order. Well, definitely not in that order. But those are the first four.
Right.
How many do they keep? Probably 5 or 6, right?
At least 5, maybe 6. Probably depends in part on how the other guys look and what they get, what they can get from them. Again, special teams is going to be a huge part of it. If Britton Covey shows that he can return punts and kicks at a high level, especially punts, you keep them. I mean, they've got to get some juice in the return game because they killed them last year. And, we don't really talk about it, but I mean, their field position last year was terrible. That was a big part of why they struggled the first half of the season. Both
they were 26th and 29th in returns last year.
Yeah, and I think they were. I can't remember. I think they were 30th in average field position start because their punter didn't help either, going the other way. So they just had bad field position all year, and that's why their ranking in yards was so much higher than their ranking in points because they had long fields all the time. So you can get 80 yards and not score. But I mean, we'll get to the punter. Well, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the punter over the next few weeks. But Britton Covey is one of the guys, who.
What a sentence only football guys would love to hear. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the punter over the next few weeks.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's a big story. It's a big storyline this summer. But I think that 5th and potentially 6th guy is just going to depend on who can help the team. I really think Devin Allen most likely is earmarked for the practice squad. Yeah. He hasn't played in so long. We'll see. We'll see what he can offer. I think he's intriguing enough. We know he's a great athlete that want to keep him, and he can make a lot of money on the. People are like, well, why would he go on the practice squad? We can just go back and run track, but he can make what is it? It's like $200,000, I think, if you're on the practice squad 18 weeks. Or just under that, and it's higher for veteran guys. And the track season, I mean, the last Diamond League meet is like the end of September. So what's he going to do? October, November, December? May as well be here, try to learn the NFL game, get into football shape, and maybe come up, be a game day call up and get in a game. But I think it's kind of a lot to ask. To think he'll make the 53 out of camp, but it's possible. And
what do you make of? What do you make of Jalen Reagor in this equation? Because I still think he's in. People aren't going to like to hear this. He's still in the lead for that 5th job,
just by default. Yeah, I still don't think he's going to be here.
Really?
I just think.
How does that? What is that? Is that a cut? Is that a trade?
I mean, if he has, he's going to have a great, even if he has a great training camp, he's not going to play. He's still a 5th guy at best. Mm-hmm. If he does that, if he makes plays in the preseason games, maybe he can get some kind of pick for him. I just don't think, he's not going to help you on special teams. We know what he offers in the return game. So you're going to really save some cap money just to have him inactive every week and maybe play if somebody gets hurt. And I just think they've given up on him. I think he's better off being somewhere else. They're better off if he's somewhere else. Start over. I just, they screwed up in 2011 or 2011, if you will, with their first round pick, and they cut him.
2001 and 1.
That's right. They cut him after his third training camp. How we did. So that's the template I'm going by.
Yeah, you might be right. I think they view him. Look, I don't think they're counting on him, but I don't think they've completely given up on him either.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think maybe they have. I mean, they brought in 2 receivers. I mean, if they still believed in him, is Zach Pascal here, along with obviously AJ Brown's here, but I mean, if Jalen Reagor was Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown wouldn't be here. Oh,
yeah.
If he was George Jefferson, he wouldn't be here.
Yeah, maybe he'd still be here.
Maybe he'd still be here.
I don't know. I still think they look at him as a returner and think there's something there. It's hard to imagine from where we're sitting, but
he can't judge the ball. He makes terrible decisions. He's got awful judgment. He lets it bounce 30 yards. I don't know.
They're just rewatching that punt return touchdown on a loop.
That did happen. Yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting question because you never want to give up on a first round pick prematurely, but I mean, if you cut him, the odds that he's going to go somewhere and make you regret it are, to me, minimal.
Yeah, and there are some other guys in the mix. We didn't talk about Greg Ward, who he's meant a lot to this team over the last few years. It's just I don't see a spot on the roster for him. John Hightower was a draft pick, but I don't see a spot on the roster for him. Now, if one of these guys shows up to camp and is undeniable, then maybe they can make the team. But I'm talking like they are head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pascal's not going anywhere, so that, if you keep a 5th guy, it's got to be a special teamer. I just can't see. I mean, Hightower's not going to help you on special teams. Again, there's the practice squad. It's there. I think all these guys we're talking about, you're not going to lose. Nobody's going to cut a guy after final cuts to claim John Hightower. So
the one guy who might get claimed is Reagor, just on the first round label.
Yeah, and you're not going to have to pay him anything.
Yeah, and it's like, look, I know that the Eagles overdrafted him, but he would have gone in the 2nd round. It's not like he was a bad college player.
But he would have been a bad 5th round pick.
No, I agree with that. But I'm just saying.
Play. I think teams understand he can't play. I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't think there's anything there.
He would end up on a team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the team would have nothing to lose. I mean,
yeah,
you get him for just a base salary with no bonus and minimal cap hit. Mm-hmm. If you cut him, you're not paying anything. So it can't hurt a new team to bring him in.
All right. The last position is safety. And really, since the last time we did real podcasts, the Eagles signed Jaquiski Tartt to a 1-year deal. Another inexpensive 1-year deal for a player who's a veteran. He's been in the league 7 years. He's had some success. He's another guy who's struggled to stay healthy at times, but it'll help because they really needed some depth at the safety position. Now you have the top 3 of Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, and Jaquiski Tartt. How do you think that plays itself out?
And, Kayvon Wallace to me is at least in the mix to some extent. Again, another guy who's got to stay healthy. I don't know. Tartt could be anywhere from a starter to not making the team. He's one of those guys. I just don't know what to make of him. I'm not a big Anthony Harris fan, so I'm more than happy to, if somebody plays better than him, whoever it is, to make a change there. I just don't think Anthony Harris doesn't make plays. He's just kind of out there. You don't notice him. Like the game ends, you're looking at your game book. Like, did he even play? And then you see he played 71 snaps. You're like, I didn't even notice him out there. So I think I like Epps. I'm kind of high on.
We're both bullish on Epps. I think he's going to be their best safety this year.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a super high bar, but yeah, I still would have kept Rodney, but that's me.
I would have too. When we saw his contract, it wasn't a money thing. They could have kept Rodney if they wanted to. They wanted to
No
move
question.
on. Yeah. All right. You want to go
Sorry.
through some players to watch? You and I have already picked these out. Sorry for the peek behind the curtain here, but we didn't want to talk about the same guys. Um, I'll let you start. We each picked three on offense and three on defense. You want to go ahead with the first one?
Yeah, and I mean, it's the obvious, it's the most obvious one. I had the first pick, and I took Jalen Hurts. That is, um, you know, I don't want. He's trying not to make too much of training camp and this practice, and he was 8 for 11 and all that. But I want to see growth from him. I want to see the ball go where it's supposed to go. I want to see quicker decisions, quicker release, more accurate. Um, and I just want to see him evolve in the offense and put the ball in places where receivers can catch it comfortably and easily and get some yards after the catch. He doesn't have to be Superman. He's got good people around him. I just want to see him get better.
Is there anything he can do, good or bad, in this training camp to make you feel a certain way about his potential entering this season?
I mean, yeah, if he's awful, then if he's consistently awful, I'm not talking about one bad practice that's going to happen or one great practice, but yeah, I mean, I think quarterback more than any other position, you can tell if a guy, maybe wide receiver, you can tell with skill guys if it's not happening, if it's not there. Now he's got, I mean, gosh, you look at it, he's going to drop back and have Goddard and Devontae and AJ Brown and Quez. I mean, Gainwell. He's got weapons. All he's got to do is make good decisions. That's all. That's what I want to see. I mean, his arm is fine. He doesn't have a rocket launcher, but his arm's fine. I just want to see good decision making and quick thinking in the pocket.
Yeah, and the accuracy, I think you'll be able to judge it a little bit as he gets on the same page with his receivers. You want to see him kind of lead those guys. You want to see him at times throw some balls in the tight windows, and I think he can do that.
There's two helicopters just went by the window there. You see that?
I do see that.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Went right past the window. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I mean, he's under a tremendous amount of pressure. I mean, they can't put this off again because of his contract. They got to either sign him or move on. So it all starts tomorrow, and I mean, he's going to be as scrutinized as any quarterback because of his situation, that we've seen around here in a long time.
We haven't talked about it yet, but the Kyler Murray contract, I know Kyler Murray's more accomplished and he has had a better career than Jalen Hurts. But does that contract make you think about what Jalen's going to get paid? Because it did for me, because Arizona clearly overpaid him. But I also thought they were in a position where they were kind of forced to pay him. Like, what are they going to do? He's a Pro Bowl quarterback who's, 25, and you can't just start over.
Right.
I think that's kind of the fear, is that the Eagles are in the situation where they just, based on the contracts for quarterbacks, are going to have to overpay Jalen Hurts if he has a good season.
Yeah, exactly. Because let's say he improves 15% from last year, say 15% across the board, touchdowns, accuracy, I don't know, whatever, however you want to measure it, passer rating. There's no way you don't sign him. You have to bring him back, because you could draft a guy, and what are the odds he's better than Jalen Hurts? Maybe in 3 years, 2 years, maybe. But he had 26 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year, 26 combined rushing and passing. If that number goes to 32 with 9, these helicopters are coming right out the window. Look at this. This is nuts. Look at these guys. You see them back there? They're like right outside my window. This is.
You okay?
I think so. I don't know if they're coming for me or what. Anyway, but yeah, if he does that, and he should, I mean, he's got upgraded weapons. How do you move on from him? You can't. That's why I wrote a few weeks ago that, unless he completely falls apart, which I just don't see happening, mean, he made the playoffs at 23 with Jalen Reagor playing 750 snaps. How is he going to take a step backwards with his work ethic and the same coach for a second year and upgraded receivers dramatically? Why would he get worse? There's no reason for him to not improve. So that's why I think they're going to end up signing him. I think they're not going to really have an option.
Yeah, and you look at the quarterback contracts throughout the league. It's funny. I think even I get caught in this mindset of like good quarterbacks make what, like 25 mil a year? No, they don't anymore. I mean, you have 3 quarterbacks in the 20s, 5 in the 30s. There are now 8 quarterbacks making over $40 million a year. So if you're talking about a starting point for an improved Jalen Hurts after this season, you're in the 30s.
Yeah, and if they offer less, Jalen Hurts said, no, become a free agent. Yeah. Somebody's going to pay me if he improves significantly. So it's fascinating.
That was a tangent. Sorry about that. Next player on the list, I'll go ahead and pick AJ Brown. Rube, I can't get over this thought that we all kind of envisioned the Eagles offense being much better this season. They were 25th in passing last year, and we all think they're going to be much better. But who have they added? Really? AJ Brown. Yeah. He's the only starter they've added to this offense. I mean, The offensive line is a little different, but it's pretty much going to be the same. The quarterback's the same. Running backs are the same. The other receivers, aside from Zach Pascal, who's kind of a role player, that's all the same. The tight end's the same. You're talking about AJ Brown.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear when they went into the offseason, it was about rebuilding the defense, and they did that. I mean, I think they felt confident. Obviously, you're confident in Devontae. You're confident in the O-line. You're confident they have good running backs. So I don't think they needed to overhaul the offense. And I do think it's only one position, but the difference between Jalen Reagor and A.J. Brown is like so drastic that can have a really big effect on everything, on the way the whole thing operates. So I'm not sure where else they needed to upgrade. They got 2 receivers, and they bring back maybe the best O-line in the league. They got talented backs, and we'll see about the quarterback. They got one of the 5 best tight ends in the league. Obviously, Ertz was here when last year started, and we don't really know about tight end 2, but they got some options. So yeah, but I think in a way that could be good. I think you want to have some consistency, and Jalen knows how this O-line works. He knows how these backs work. He's got a familiarity with most of the guys on the offense, and the one new guy he's best friends with.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how they play together, because even though they're best friends and they've thrown to each other before, I think there's still a learning curve.
Absolutely.
To figure it out. Even you look at Jalen and Devontae last year, they had played together before a few years earlier, but it still took them a while to really be able to connect. So there will be a learning curve with AJ and Jalen. It'll probably just be a little expedited.
Yeah, I think if people assume that because their friends are going to, hit the ground on day one and, look like Montana and Rice, I mean, it's going to take some time.
All right, how about your next offensive player?
My next offensive player is Isaac Seumalo. We talked about him a little bit. He's another one who, because of his contract, he might not be here next year. And if it's not going well, or if he's hurt, or even if he starts the season on or the preseason on PUP, Driscoll or Sue is in there and plays really well, does Isaac get his job back? And how much do these injuries? He's been hurt the last 2 years, serious, significant injuries, surgery. How many times do we see him coming out of that door, going to that car with that, what do you call that?
Rollabout?
Yeah, thank you. The rollabout. He's been through a lot physically, so we'll see. I think he's an interesting guy to watch.
Yeah, the Lisfranc is a pretty serious injury, and you're talking about feet for an offensive lineman. It's not an easy one to overcome. My next player is a bottom of the roster guy, at least for now, but Britton Covey, I'm excited to watch. And we had Merrill on a few weeks ago, and he mentioned how excited he is to watch Britton Covey. I'm right there with him. This guy was electric at Utah, and it's been so long since they've had a really good return man. Uh,
Sproles.
Sproles, but even like we're talking Sproles, not at the end of his time here. It was really, how
Sproles is
many?
6.
16.
Yeah,
But then
that
he
was
got hurt 3 games into the season, or 17 got hurt 3 games in.
yeah. 2016 is the last time the Eagles were in the top 10 in either punt return or kick return in the league. So that's got to change. But Covey, I mean, he's so small. I can't imagine he's going to be a factor on offense, but it doesn't matter. I wouldn't even bother with him on offense. Just work him on punts and kicks. And
Would you be willing to have a roster spot for return man?
yeah, I think so, because it's such an important. I mean, we've seen over the last few years Greg Ward's Greg Ward's a great story and everything, but when you have Greg Ward back there and he catches the ball and gets 3 yards, I mean, the return game has killed this team. It can make such a difference. It can be such a game changer. I'm not talking about touchdowns, just get 13, 14 yards on a punt and get 22 yards, 24 yards on a kick. Make good decisions. Yeah, I would definitely, if Covey shows he can handle it, I would definitely keep him.
Okay. All right, you're up with the next one, the surprise pick of the summer here.
Yeah, to me, and look, I think everyone who's at practice is going to be watching Devin Allen, and it's a crazy story. You got a guy who hasn't played in 6 years, but he has played big time football. It's just been a long time. I hope he's healthy. He's got a lot of odds to buck here, but I want to see him. I mean, he's got good size. He's a world-class athlete. He's played football. He's got all those things, but how long is it going to take for it to come back? And how comfortable does he look? How does he transfer that track speed into football speed? How physical is he getting off the line of scrimmage against press? These are the things I want to see from him. Does he Jeremy Bloom changed his whole body. Like he had to, when he became a skier, when he got here, he just wasn't built like a football player. I think Devin Allen is. He looks like he's not going to have to make major changes in the way he's built.
That's what I'm kind of curious about, because he said he like training for football and training for the hurdles isn't much different. I mean, he's a better expert on both of those topics than I am, so I guess I got to take his word for it. But do you buy that?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I think he was on John Clark's podcast.
Take Off with John Clark.
Take Off with John Clark, which he does a great job with. And I think he said, yeah, getting off the line of scrimmage, it's the same burst as, you're getting out of the starting blocks.
Good news here is he won't be penalized for
reacting. He could be if he jumps off size, but
he didn't.
No, that's true. He really did. But and if it's just 5 yards, it's not like he get kicked out of the league. So he's got that going for him. But it's a similar thing. You're exploding, and I'm really intrigued. I can't wait to see him.
All right, let's go to defense. I got the first pick on defense. I went with Hassan Reddick. As big an addition as AJ Brown is on offense, Hassan Reddick is that on defense. They have to be better at getting after the quarterback. 29 sacks, and we know that that's not the most important stat all the time, but it's too few sacks. I mean, you got to make those plays more, and Hassan Reddick has done that over the last few years. And I'm excited to watch him in training camp, not just to see him, but to see how Jonathan Gannon uses him. And then he's going to be going against a couple of good tackles in Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. So the competition, that aspect of it's going to be fun to watch too.
Yeah. It's funny how defensive coaches say sacks don't matter when they have 29 of them, but when they have 50, we're among the leaders in the league in sacks. So they do matter because, you can rush a quarterback and get close to him and get a hurry and all that, and he still throws for 17 yards. You sack the guy, you're looking at 2nd and 17 or a fumble maybe.
And Reddick has forced a lot of fumbles. He has 8 forced fumbles over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and that's a big thing to keep an eye on. The Eagles have been terrible with takeaways. I did a piece on that too while you were gone. They're like one of 4 teams in NFL history to have what is it, like gosh, I can't remember the number, X number of takeaways in 3 straight years. I think it's like fewer than 12 or something. They just don't get him. So he's big. I mean, him and Bradbury are going to be big trying to, change that trend.
All right. How about the next one? Your defensive player.
My first defensive guy is BG. And again, I mean, what does he have left at 34 coming off this Achilles? And does he have that first step? I mean, he's always had such a good first step, getting off the ball, so quick and athletic. It's a lot to ask for a 34-year-old edge rusher who's healthy, who's coming off a healthy year. He's coming off a very serious injury. If anybody can do this, it's BG.
I'm not doubting him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I do want to see how he looks when they're going full speed.
Yeah. And look, they added Hassan Reddick as an edge rusher, but at that defensive end position, they didn't add anyone. I mean, They're bringing back BG, they're bringing back Josh Sweat, and they brought back Derek Barnett. And they have Teron Jackson as their own. They only have, and Matt Leo, they have 5 defensive ends on the roster right now. So I know that it's a little convoluted because they're the overhang players, and you're going to have Reddick and the Johnsons at those spots. But purely defensive ends, they're going to rely on BG still.
Ryan Kerrigan's one phone call away. Ryan, hey, it's Howie.
All right.
Yeah.
My next defensive player, Nakobe Dean. We talked a bunch about him already, but it's kind of like Reddick. It's not just seeing the player; it's seeing how they're using him. And we mentioned it earlier, but how much are they going to give him, and how quickly are they going to give it to him?
Yeah, that's intriguing. He didn't get a ton of first team snaps at OTAs. I don't want to make too much of that, but it was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's like this deference, though, to the veterans that wears off.
Yeah, but that'll certainly be an interesting storyline to watch. Where he lines up and how much he lines up with the ones.
All right, your next guy.
My next guy, I believe, is Marcus Epsy. I was doing that Birds Huddle show with Danny Pommel's last night, and I called him Epsy. I wasn't really thinking. I was just like, because we always call him Epsy. We have since he got here 2 years ago. And Danny just looked at me like, did you call him Epsy? It's like
the old Jim Schwartzism.
Yeah, or like the Flyers, they're all like, those Epsy type names. But it's just another really intriguing storyline. Could go either way. Not everybody can handle. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys who, if they're playing 30 snaps a game, they're just fine as a role player. They're running around, they're making plays, they're active, productive. You get a little greedy, you start to amp up their reps and their playing time, and they're just not the same. There's like that point of diminishing returns with some guys. That's just how some players are.
But then there's others like TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
You give him a bigger role, and he handled it fine.
Exactly. That was the example I was going to use. So we'll see which one of those categories Epsy falls into. I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. My last defense.
Epps is really instinctive and finds the ball. The ball finds him, however you want to say it. He always seems to show up where the ball is. I like that about him.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a decent year. But if he doesn't, they have Jaquiski Tart, who's my last defensive player. I'm curious to see how they use him and how that safety rotation plays itself out. He was a fun player to watch. I went back and watched a little bit of him with San Francisco, and he makes plays. He's around the ball. He's a fun player to watch because he's pretty physical. I mean, he'll hit guys, which we won't be able to see in training camp unless we take a time machine back to when you started covering the team. But maybe we'll see it in some joint practices. Maybe we'll see it in the preseason a little bit. He's another guy, though, who's got to stay healthy because that has hurt him in his career.
One thing about Dave as a journalist, one thing Dave loves to do is call family members to get a real, like he did that story on Nakobe Dean, and you talk to his mom and former teammates. I'm waiting for you to talk to Jaquiski Tart's father so you can attribute a quote to Pop-Tart.
Oof.
Dave's like, it's going to be a long season.
Long season.
I
wondered where you were going with that.
My last defensive guy, I was wondering too for a little while. Jordan Davis. I'm really intrigued to see what that rotation's like at defensive tackle. There's a lot of guys who can play. I think it's a really good situation for him because I think he's ready physically to play 50, 60 snaps. So I want to see how they work him in, where we see him, what he gives you getting after the quarterback, if anything. Just want to see what their plans are for him. I think long term, I think eventually, he'll be he better be a full-time player considering where they drafted him. But I think it's a good situation for him this year and for Fletch, because I think Fletch at this point in his career isn't really a full-time player anymore. So it could work out really well. You got Hargrave, you got Milton, you got Fletch, and you got Jordan Davis, and see how it all shakes out. But he's just so freaking big, and I'm really intrigued to see what he's able to do as a rookie here at camp.
Yeah, I said it back at OTAs. So I wonder when the first time it'll be where I look at Jordan Davis and my first thought isn't, gosh, he's big. He's just a mountain of a man. I'm curious to see, a little eager to see what kind of shape he's in on day one too, because now he's been working with the nutritionalists and the training staff here, and he seems to want to take it seriously, and it's going to really matter for him.
Yeah, exactly, and that kind of plays into how much playing time he'll get, how many reps he'll get. If he's not in shape, I mean, you can't put a guy out there in the fourth quarter of a game, a close game, who's giving you 85%. So if he's not in shape, he's not going to play.
All right. That was our list. We did good there. Anything else you want to add?
Well, they did have a roster. They did sign a guy today, a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
They had a running back in, Jaquan Hardy. There was a report that they were going to sign him. They ended up working him out and didn't sign him. We might see him at some point.
Yeah. Kobe Smith is a defensive tackle they signed.
Yeah, Kobe Smith. He was with the Bucks and the Cowboys last year. So I think you'll see. I mean, you'll start to see some roster moves. Guys are struggling, or guys are going to get hurt, and they'll be bringing guys in over the next few weeks, and we'll keep you up to date on all of them.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of podcasts. If you guys were like, man, we really missed you in the last 5 weeks, you're going to take that back pretty soon, because we're going to have a lot of podcasts. We're going to try to do one every day. There's a training camp practice. They might be short, but we just want to talk about what we saw that day, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
We're going to do another one in 5 minutes.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I got to remember how to do this part of it. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. It's training camp season. We can't wait to get going. For Reuben,
Dave won't sleep tonight.
I'm Dave Zangaro. I will be full of coffee tomorrow, and we'll talk to you.